Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be diving into sort of all things split squats. So looking at a front foot elevated split squat, looking at a rear foot elevated split squat, common mistakes in execution, how we can fix those things and maximize the effectiveness of our split squat. First thing is going to be, I don't want to get too caught up in the idea of a glute focus or a quad focus. Not that those things can't be valuable for us, but first and foremost, I want to make sure I'm just maximizing my ability to execute the movement pattern without getting specialized, right? A lot of people will skip that step. They'll end up doing some really gross looking split squats, trying to get more quad or more glute before they've actually hit the requisite capabilities that we're going to want to have to do these exercises well. So first and foremost, let's dive into the rear foot elevated split squat, sort of the execution here. Let's hop up. Commonly, people are going to set their back support up too high, so I will intentionally use this box for this. So step one, make sure wherever your back leg is not too high when you're doing your split squats. You see how I'm biasing more of this extended pattern right here? First and foremost, I don't want to have to load too much hip extension on a rear foot elevated split squat. The purpose of the rear foot elevation is to make sure I can keep a rear foot elevated split squat, right? It's a front leg exercise. So the box is too high. Very often you'll see people that are arching their low back, which is really step two, finding that optimal rib cage over pelvis position, stronger position, better output for the lower body. But also what you'll see is a lot of this shit where we're shifting into the back leg because the back leg is too high. I don't want to shift back. I want to stay over that front leg. So step one, box should not be too high. If we are using even a standard bench and it's higher than our active hip extension, what we can do is just throw a plate in front like so. And now instead of lowering the back rest, which we can't really lower, we've raised the front leg, which will effectively lower our back leg, right? So set up first. Next thing is going to be making sure that we have this stacked rib cage over pelvis. So whether it's a rear foot elevated, front foot elevated, generally I want to find this like cylinder position, right? Like a Coke can. I want my rib cage stacked over my pelvis so that I have a strong position. I can have a high degree of output because I'm in a stable position to produce force. The next thing I'm gonna be looking for is my ability to get ipsilateral hip shift or get some length to my front hip. What I'm looking for with that, I know I did rear foot elevated, front foot elevated, same principle here. I'm looking for this big toe, knees, sternum in line. I can link another video for that I did previously talking about the importance of that, but you'll see here I'm getting more length in my lateral hip. So whether it is a front foot elevated, whether it's a rear foot elevated, I wanna make sure I'm getting good length into this glute. More length means I'm in a better position to produce leverage, especially in this case. So step one, don't set up too high in your rear foot elevated split squat. Step two, don't get overextended, so don't lose relative rib cage and pelvis positioning. Make sure we're getting that stacked position. Step three, make sure that we're actually getting that big toe, knee, sternum in line. The next thing I want to cue is full foot pressure, full foot contact. A lot of people will have their big toe coming up or their weight more in their heel, weight more in their toes. I want to think about my full foot being in contact. I want to make sure that I'm not, I'll turn it this way actually. I wanna make sure I'm not coming into my toes. I wanna make sure my weight is not all the way in my heel. I wanna make sure that I'm not actively lifting my toes up while I'm trying to move around. I wanna find full ground with my foot, full stability. I wanna still let it move. I don't wanna grab the ground with my feet, but I wanna kind of just cue full contact so I have more support up the chain, a foot that can move better. So these principles I've talked about can cross-apply regardless of the exercise variation we're using here. Even if it's a stationary lunge, for example, even if it's a step down, a lot of these things will apply. Now I want to finish up just differentiating between a rear foot elevated or a Bulgarian split squat and a front foot elevated split squat. I already mentioned earlier, rear foot elevated split squat is more of a front leg exercise. So if I want to train this front hip function, if I want to train my front glute, my front quad, whatever it is, that's going to be rear foot elevated. If I want to train more of both legs at the same time, more function of the hip, include things like hip extension, I want to do a front foot elevated split squat where now both feet are on the ground. It's really a bilateral exercise, right? Because I have weight more even on both feet. Rear foot elevated is actually more unilateral because I'm almost all the way on my front leg. A step down is actually purely unilateral. Single leg RDL is purely unilateral, right? This is still bilateral. So I want to focus on both legs here, but I want to make sure I'm actually driving active hip extension. I'm not folding over. I'm not loading onto this front leg too much. I want this generally to be a 2-leg exercise. I have the ability to maintain this more negative shin angle, active hip extension here. That's what I want from this exercise. So just to recap, don't set up too high, don't set up too far away where we're too overextended. Generally speaking, I want to get into a position where I can just first and foremost do the movement well before I am challenging or biasing glutes or biasing quads first. Get the movement down first. Next thing to me, making sure that I'm just ticking the boxes, ribcage over pelvis, full foot contact, understanding big toe, knee, and sternum in lines, what I want to get out of my hip function. And then I can kind of pick the exercise variation based on my goals. If you guys have any more questions on execution or exercise selection in regards to these two especially, let me know below. Send me an email, whatever you need from me, you know where to find me.